Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Oh, hello, everyone. It's good to see you. We haven't had conversation on Notes to My Legal Self for a little while because I've been traveling. I've tried to have this conversation on the road, and my results were okay. They were not. They didn't inspire me to do it again. Let's just leave it at that. So now I'm back for a few weeks, and hopefully we're gonna have a few more conversations. I love having them. Many of you have questions and actively participate, either during the conversation or after, and I love that. So definitely do that. I have a very exciting guest today. He's doing amazing things. He's an in-house lawyer doing exciting things. Ramtin, welcome to the show. I'm so excited about this conversation. Please introduce yourself.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Ramtin Taheri. I'm a in-house counsel at Nice Actimize, which is a fintech company that makes software for banks, like regulatory software like AML compliance, know your customer, and fraud prevention software. And then separately from that, recently I launched the legal influencer marketing agency with my co-founder, Brian Potts, who's a partner at Perkins Coie. And we've collected a really interesting and awesome group of creators. And we're now starting to run campaigns using influencer marketing that are directed to lawyers and law students. So it's a very exciting and interesting field. And I'm thrilled to be able to discuss that with you here.
So cool. And I just love how lawyers are thinking what it means to practice law and how much more they can do with their law degree. And you are a very good example of that. So let's start with your actual in-house practice, what it is that you do at the fintech company and how did you get to be where you are? And then I definitely want to discuss your entrepreneurial ventures, but let's save it for the rest of the conversation.
Sure. So I started off working in law firms, and I took a little bit of an unorthodox route to go in-house. I actually started off doing intellectual property litigation. So I practiced patent litigation for several years, and then I kind of expanded into trademark litigation, copyright litigation, and then I even started to do some data security and privacy. But I was always very interested in kind of helping build a company. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and I wanted to give kind of more longer-term legal advice rather than just answer discrete questions. So I went in-house several years ago. I worked at a software company in Pittsburgh called ft.N Company that made software for specialty pharmacies. And then after that, I worked at a very cool startup called Credly that made software for digital credentials. And I was only at ft.N for a short time, but at Credly, I really got to see the ins and outs of building a company from the ground up and the types of challenges they had with respect to developing policies and procedures, creating new processes, scaling a company while maintaining the original vision and culture, and basically everything a company has to do for the first time, we were doing it. So purchasing legal tech, that's something that I had to do for the first time. And actually part of the reason that I was really excited to do this influencer marketing agency is because working in-house and kind of trying to build the in-house legal department for the startup from scratch made me realize how little information there is out there to help in-house lawyers, especially junior ones. It's when you want to buy software like contract lifecycle management software, when you want to buy, document generation software, there's just so much, there's just so little reliable information. And it was one of the bigger challenges I had working at the startup. And then now at Nice Actimize, I do much of the same thing. I negotiate SaaS contracts. I do some regulatory compliance, um, and I just kind of generally help the company solve any legal issues that may arise. But I'm mostly contracts.
I love that. No, that's a great introduction. By the way, we're living parallel lives. The best of us have been former IP litigators who become data security litigators, who went to software companies, who now are doing things on the business side. Wait, I think I know the story really well. I think I'm living it. That's really exciting, and you did a smooth segue to you having your legal practice in house, exciting adventures in fintech, pharmacy, tech, all kinds of software. Um, and you decided to do this adventure with Brian on the side, building the legal influencer agency. How did that come about?
Sure. So Brian, as you know, is an incredible guy. So he's a partner at Perkins Coie, but then on the side, he started a bunch of other ventures. He actually started the Legal Mentor Network, and he actually started um, a ETF that only invests in like left wing and Democrat companies. And as part of that venture, he actually hired a political influencer marketing agency to run a campaign for him. Apparently, that campaign was very successful. And he thought to himself, why is there not one of these for law? So I met him at a dinner in New York City. He just kind of reached out to me because I was kind of part of his LinkedIn universe. And we met at this dinner. It was the first time we met. And he pitched this idea to me of a legal influencer marketing agency. And I've always had an entrepreneurial streak. And like I said, I'm very interested in technology. I'm very interested in legal tech. And I'm very interested in the problem of lawyers receiving, good information to help build both their law firm practice and their in-house legal departments. So I said yes. And he kind of didn't believe me at first. He didn't think I'd actually follow through with it. But over the next several months, we collected a really awesome group of creators. And we started reaching out to clients, and we've gotten a lot of interest from clients. And we've already run our first campaign, and we're running some additional campaigns, and we're learning a lot of lessons, and it's very fun and exciting, and we're getting some good results too.
That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna give a shout out to Danielle who says hello. I will encourage people who are listening to listen, yes, and definitely ask questions because, from my experience, you will get a whole lot more out of conversation if you're part of it. So definitely take an opportunity to ask questions. So Ramtin, really cool. I love that you are able to combine what you do in house with things that you do on the side. I'm just curious, what was the process for you to say yes to that, to embrace it, and did you have any reservations?
Yeah, I think there's always a reservation because I think in any kind of legal practice, the workload is unpredictable. So you never want to commit to a side project because even though you think you'll be able to make time for it, you don't know what's going to happen to your company. You don't know what's going to happen to your law firm, practice. Suddenly your work can shoot through the roof, and now you can't devote the time to your side project that you need to. And you also don't want your side project to hurt your main career. Like, I'm committed to this company. They have deadlines and they have salespeople that want to close their contracts, and I don't want anybody there to feel like I may be ignoring them or not performing my best because I'm focused on the side thing. So it was a very difficult decision to make because I didn't want to give short shrift to either of these ventures. And I think the decision I just made to myself is, if there's a trade-off, I have to just sacrifice my weekends and holidays because I can't ignore my employer or my, all the creators and clients that I'm committing to. on my side venture.
Yeah, no, I see quite a few lawyers entering, side gigs or entrepreneurial adventures. I also see that many of them struggle with uh, perhaps even overthinking this much more than I would say other professionals. Thank you for articulating the factors that you've considered and how you convince yourself that one, it's the right decision, and two, how you would mitigate potential concerns. You mentioned in starting this agency that you yourself observed the need on the ground, that when people make purchasing decisions, they're sometimes not informed. And I guess maybe the only thing I will add to that, that doesn't always correlate with number of years in practice or age. I would say misinformation and lack of experience is an equal opportunity type of situation, especially in legal tech. That at least what I've been observing from the ground. So part of what you articulated is that you started because you wanted to have an entrepreneurial adventure. But another part you articulated pretty clearly, I think, is the need in this marketplace to be better informed. So I'm just curious, what need do you think you're addressing, and how do you think what you and Brian are doing is going to have an impact?
Sure. So thank you for asking that. Um, I can just speak from my own experience. When I was in house at Credly, we were growing very quickly. We I was the only full-time lawyer there. We had a ton of contracts coming through, and I was just obsessed with any type of efficiency improvement I could make. So if it meant creating some new policies, some new procedures, shifting work to other people, buying legal tech, and I did a lot of work with my boss, who is the general counsel, in looking for legal tech products we could buy to streamline our processes. And it was scary because we don't know how it's going to work. Is it going to make our life easier? Is it going to make our life more difficult? A lot of these products require a giant, financial commitment, and they also kind of require you to turn over your entire legal department to this software. And if it works badly, everybody's life becomes more miserable, both in the legal department and the rest of the company. So we tried to do a ton of research. I remember our biggest purchase was a CLM software product, and we just asked everybody we knew. We sent emails to other lawyers we knew. And as you know, Olga, lawyers are very conservative. We don't ever want to be on the cutting edge of anything. We only want to do something when we know it works and we have heard from people we trust and believe works. So that whole process made me realize how important it is for lawyers and law students to be able to get information from trusted, authoritative voices that they believe in. Law is always is based on authority. Like when you're a litigator, you're citing authority, and nothing is more powerful to a lawyer than another lawyer that they know using a product or a service and telling them that this is something I genuinely believe in and trust. So what we aim to do at the Legal Influencer Marketing Agency is just connect, these amazingly innovative and exciting legal tech companies with trusted, authoritative voices on social media who their audience believes them, their audience trusts them, and they can speak authentically and realistically. So it's not an ad. A lot of times our creators are actually using these products. And in fact, they'll reach out to me and say, Ramtin, I'm using this product. It's great. Let's try to get them as a client. So I think that is a real kind of gap in the market right now because we're just not talking to each other. We're not getting information from all the sources we could get information from. And there's just so many, amazing legal tech companies and creators nowadays. And to be able to connect them, I think is, it's really cool. And I'm very happy to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, I mean, you can definitely count on lawyers to follow precedent, but you can also count on lawyers to accept evidence, right? So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think this is where, I love my people, but that I mean other lawyers. I'm yet to meet a lawyer I didn't like completely. So, so aside, of various beliefs, I do think that, those two qualities of precedent following and evidence accepting as very powerful ways lawyers make decisions, and peers do have an opportunity to influence that decision. Historically, that peer influence and that peer conversations were sort of one to one, sometimes in the group setting, like, for example, ACC or some local bar association. But increasingly, they are becoming sort of social media. And that's probably the biggest difference, right? Is this sort of power of social media in having one to many conversations and sharing experiences and authoritative um, evaluation or experiences with the product. So just curious, um, in thinking, on some level, not new, giving peer um, recommendation. On the other hand, one to many is somewhat newer. So how are you thinking about sort of the power of social media? You know, uh, what's there, who views it, who asks questions, how is it changing dynamics?
Yeah. So one, conversation I've had with a lot of people, and Olga, you may relate to this, is you graduate law school, you get your first job, you're like an associate in a law firm or something, or you're a junior lawyer in some like other kind of organization, and you just have no idea what you're doing, and you're terrified, and you're worried you're going to make some mistake, and a lot of times,
I
especially,
don't know what you're talking to me about it. That never happened to me. I am laughing because it's such a common experience. My
yeah,
my big law class was 90 people, and I can't tell you how many times we had conversations in the hallways. Oh my God, I just fill in the blank, got this assignment. And oh my God, I have no idea where to start and what to do and how to even think about it.
yeah, it's really scary, and a lot of times you're working for some like 50-year-old partner who's like the senior guy in his field. He doesn't have the time to teach you or train you. So you have to figure it out on your own, and it's scary. And but what's amazing about social media now is that there's so many creators that are. Oh, well, let me take a step back. So I found that in my career, it was always helpful to find certain lawyers that would serve as like a mentor to me. So the best thing that's helped me is like I'm very lucky that I had several lawyers that were above me that helped mentor me. A lot of times they were like junior partners who knew enough to help me, but also weren't, you know, so old and busy that they couldn't help me. So one thing that's amazing about social media, it's like you have access to all these different mentors, all these different lawyers. There's so much good advice, especially on LinkedIn. Like there's lawyers that teach you about work-life balance, how to navigate, life in a big law firm, how to navigate life, starting out as an in-house counsel, how to mark up contracts, which I've seen you do some great content about, how to write. And I remember when I was working in a law firm, and one of my performance reviews, they said, one of the things you can do better is learn to write. And back then, this was like 10 years ago, there were not a lot of great resources. Like I thought to myself, like, well, how do I learn how to write better? The partner's not going to sit down with me and teach me how to write better. But now, on social media, there's writing coaches and there's all these creators that are great, posting this great content about writing. And now we've got all these great legal tech companies too. Like, there's this company called Hotshot Legal that makes these training videos for various areas of law to help big law lawyers understand the their practice areas so they don't need to go badger the partner. There's companies. There's a company called Due Course that provides like skills coaching, like leadership coaching. These are things that didn't exist when I graduated law school, and sometimes I think my life could have been so much better if I had access to all these resources. And I think that's the true value in social media is that there's genuinely brilliant, experienced lawyers who are willing to give away their knowledge for free to younger lawyers. Oh, there's another example. My partner, Brian. Brian posts great content about how to find jobs. And Brian will actually meet with anybody who wants to meet with him to talk about finding a job. Lawyer, law student. It's incredible. I had times when I was looking for a job, a service like that would have been incredible for me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've seen and I have been on this sort of giving away and having a frankly benefiting, having a lot of conversations. I actually think it's, well beyond age. I am still, much closer to 50 than I am to 20 at this point. And I can tell you that I benefit from conversations with my peers who are ahead of me and who are behind me. And I'm learning something every day in every conversation, getting a perspective that I haven't considered it or I haven't seen it the same way. And there are people giving away knowledge. I personally have seen partners and peers who are not giving. Again, has nothing to do with their age, has a lot to do with who they are. And then I've seen partners and peers who are. And I do love the power of social media of scaling this positive behavior that really helps everyone, and all the sharing that is happening and really peaked at the pandemic and continues into various businesses as we see today. So I definitely think that there's a massive power of social media to help everyone rise. Um, I have a few more questions that I want to
Actually,
ask.
can I interrupt and say one thing?
Go ahead.
I mean, I know you're very humble, but you yourself are putting out such great content on your LinkedIn page, and it's just you're a very successful person. You've built a career that most lawyers would envy, and the fact that you would allow people a glimpse into your mind and your thoughts and your advice as a resource, that's just incredible. So, you know,
Yeah,
I'm
well, I built a career on sharing. To be completely honest with you, I've shared knowledge, best practices, and frankly, where I was, and when I was when I wanted to be a general counsel, when I was corporate lawyer, I was sort of sharing my struggle of becoming one. And then when I found myself to be a general counsel, the only woman in the boardroom, I had done some advocacy, and I shared my struggles then. Then I switched to a very misunderstood technology in crypto blockchain and had opportunity to talk to legislators worldwide and had shared my adventures then. And then I joined a legal tech company and had, during right before the pandemic, and had an opportunity to be in CLM as the field was booming and a lot of money was coming in. And through the sharing of my experience and knowledge of what I think works for me, I attracted into my life people who help me one way or another, either by giving me a perspective, um, teaching me what I actually need to know to do my job. It turns out I never had the same job twice, so I'm basically an amateur every time I join a new job. And I actually need quite a lot of mentoring. And sometimes they're people younger, and sometimes they're older, and sometimes they're just different people than I normally meet. So I'm in the process of becoming much more open-minded and learn quite a lot. So for me, it's been a lot of sort of give and take. Actually, I try to give as much as I can because I've been a beneficiary of those relationships and learning. And so yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love what Brian does, meeting with people. I try to meet with as many people as I can. Obviously, there's a limitation of having a full-time job, and other commitments, including young children. However, I do in quote unquote mentoring sessions find that I actually probably learn a lot more than someone who asked me for mentorship. I find that it's an incredible journey and an opportunity to rise yourself and bring others along on the journey. So I really do believe in the power of social media and harnessing it.
Yeah, and you also made a very good point about saying how previously those conversations, those mentoring relationships were like one to one. Like you would meet somebody through your family or through your firm, or just a friend or something. But now with social media, it can be one to many. So now you can have access to all these different sources of information and mentors that you previously would not have had access to. And also, you can reach out to like a third party that has nothing to do with your career or industry, and then you can feel comfortable looking, asking stupid questions, knowing that you won't get judged for it.
Yeah, yeah. And because there's a power in not being the only one who has this question. It turns
Yeah.
out my stupid questions are actually widely adopted by everyone else in the industry. So there's a power in numbers. We're coming to the end. I do want to talk about sort of the benefit for technology companies. And in how you guys are thinking through this agency, because as you mentioned, law has not always benefited from the cutting edge of technology. I can tell you that there's amazing technology that is available, and I am really, really excited to see some of it becoming part of normal in law. But this process of educating and bringing sort of people outside of law uh, to socialize in the wild with lawyers is really a challenge. And so I'm just curious how you identified this problem, and then how you guys thinking of solving it.
Sure. So, a lot of our clients and potential clients are legal tech companies, and they basically fall into one of two categories. One of the categories is software that already kind of exists, like some kind of analogy exists in the legal world, like, for example, CLM, document management software. These are things people have been using for a while. But some of our clients are selling products that are just completely innovative, and there's nothing like this has ever existed. And they're very useful, and they're they're incredible products. But because they're brand new, both in form and concept, a lot of lawyers are going to be reluctant to be the first one to jump in. We're generally the conservative bunch. If we wanted to be innovative and risk taking, we would have gone to business school and not law school. And I think one kind of value that our influencers can bring is we are going to connect these brands with the creators, and the creators are actually going to use the software and actually integrate it into their practice when appropriate, such that they're giving a genuine kind of authentic review. And it's not just an ad, because obviously an ad is going to just say whatever the ad's going to say. But when it's a real practicing lawyer who's actually used the product and actually given it a test run and can attest to the quality of the product, that I think is going to open a lot of doors for lawyers to kind of dip their feet in the water and try some of these more innovative technologies that they may not have otherwise tried out before. Like, I know for myself, if I see an ad for a product that sounds interesting or cool, I may or may not want to try it out. But if I see a lawyer that I really trust, who I respect, and he gives a glowing review about it on social media, and he's actually used it, that's going to make me a lot more likely to want to try it out.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. I love how you divide the products to market sort of into categories that are already there and you're trying to differentiate versus something completely new and haven't been seen in nature among lawyers at least. And people sort of are reluctant to jump in. I once had a conversation with Mike, who's now the president of Clock, and I interviewed him for ACC, where he was making a case of virtues of being a beta tester. And then sharing his findings with the team. And he shared with me at the time that there is no tech provider that he wouldn't consider as a sort of taking them for a spin, so to speak, to be a beta tester. Not, sometimes considered for his legal department, but really just to understand what's in the wild. And I'm gonna give him credit for that idea. I've written that article almost 10 years ago now, but I've adapted as a philosophy of there is nothing I wouldn't do at least once, and that generally actually applies in my personal life and my definitely legal tech career. I love being a beta tester. I learn a lot And I love giving feedback and learning in the process. Sometimes that results in me staying with the company longer as an advisor. Sometimes I invest in the company. Sometimes I will share on my social media my interesting, bizarre experience that I may or may not have liked, and ask other people for feedback. And through that, I've grown as a professional, as a technologist, and as a future law advocate. So I do think that there's, in addition to genuine users, there's also a world where beta testers, semi-professional beta testers, will try things out and tell you what they think. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, so I personally love technology and I love trying out new things. And if I had the opportunity to be a beta tester for some of these new legal tech companies, I would love it. And I'm sure some of our creators would love it too. They like to be on the cutting edge too. At the same time, a lot of lawyers, they just don't have that luxury to be trying stuff out, and they don't want to be the person at their company kind of pitching this brand new software that no one's ever used before that might fail. So that's why I think a lot of lawyers would like to see a more established voice that has already tried it out, that has already used it, and can give an authentic, genuine kind of appraisal that this is something that's going to bring value to your organization. So, and I think, yeah, that's another, I think you're exactly right. That's another value of social media. The pioneers like Olga and Ramtin can try something out. And then once we've kind of given our feedback, then the regular folks that aren't as adventurous can then adopt those technologies.
Some people call me a risk preferring lawyer. Um, I think you just did a more diplomatic way of describing the same thing. Um, Really cool. Sadly, our time comes to the end. I can talk about it for a long time. I have a view on this beta testing concept. And I also think that technology is often not black and white. Like, it's not necessarily good or bad. It's good, and meaning it's good under certain circumstances. And you may or may not embody the circumstance. So that educated view is I think is actually what I find helpful when I get from my colleagues. It's not that this is better than others, but this is where I think I use it, and under those circumstances, this gives me a fantastic result. And I think this is where beta testers or risk preferring lawyers or technologists are really helpful. But sadly, our time comes to the end. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I'm really excited that you are taking advantage of social media that allows having conversations one to many, and really uplift our game as legal professionals at scale. So super excited that we had an opportunity to chat, and you and Brian are having this adventure, and I got a chance to be having a conversation with you right in the beginning of it. I'm curious. We've covered a lot of ground. What is one takeaway for the audience, for the listeners, primarily in house, that you may have, so they can maybe have more fun with this thing called technology?
Um, so I guess I would say whatever challenges you're facing at your work, somebody else has probably dealt with those challenges. And now with the growth of social media, if you do some digging and research, you can find help to help you improve your in-house legal department or your law firm department or whatever. Um, there's just so many more resources now than existed before. There's so many more legal tech companies. There's so many more creators that can, you know, it's not like the old days where you're on an island and you have these problems and you have no idea what the answers are. Everything you're dealing with, probably somebody else has dealt with it and they've talked about it and they have some good advice on it. So you just need to do some research on social media. And fortunately, there are some great creators like you, Olga, like Brian, like some of our other creators who are putting out great free content to help, you know, in-house lawyers, law firm lawyers, all these people, you know, that are dealing with the same problems. They just never had a way to communicate before.
Yeah, yeah. The power of one-to-many conversation. Ramtin, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. Me too. And I always enjoy talking to you, and I love your brain, and I love what you do for the legal community. So, yeah.
I heard you too. And on that bright note, I'll see everyone next time.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.